Night arrives without ceremony. It does not announce itself. It simply settles. If you are listening now, perhaps the lights around you are already dim. The room feels softer at the edges. Shadows stretch longer, not to frighten but to rest. You may notice your shoulders dropping just a little. Your breath slowing without effort. Nothing is being asked of you tonight. There is nothing to remember, nothing to understand, nothing to hold on to. You are simply here, and that is enough. Somewhere in the background, there may be a gentle sound, a fan turning slowly, or air moving through an open window. A steady rhythm, like time itself, moving without urgency. Tonight's story is not about triumph, not about downfall, not about heroes or villains. It is about something quieter, something that took centuries to become what it is. Something that grew slowly, patiently, almost invisibly while generations lived and faded around it. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, before we drift any further, you don't need to do anything at all. If this quiet space feels comforting, you can always return to it another night. For now, simply stay. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Now, let us begin. Imagine Paris, not the Paris of noise or movement, not the Paris of crowds and lights. This is Paris in the 12th century, long before the city learned to rush. It is late evening. The river Seine moves slowly, its surface dark and patient, reflecting small points of oil lamp light from the banks. The water does not hurry. It has nowhere else to be. Stone bridges rest above it, heavy and calm, as they have learned to do over time. The air carries the faint scent of damp limestone and cooling earth. Footsteps are rare now. Most doors are closed. And in the quiet near the river, something is beginning. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily. Stacks of pale stone sit in neat, silent rows. Wooden scaffolding stands still in the night air, its beams darkened by years of touch and weather. Tools rest where hands last left them. Chisels, mallets, ropes coiled without tension. No one is working now. The builders have gone home. Their names, most of them, will never be written down, yet something remains. An idea. At this hour, it does not yet look like a cathedral. It looks like a thought made of stone. A dream that has only begun to take shape. The ground beneath it feels cool, solid, patient. If you were to stand here, you might feel the quiet weight of it beneath your feet, not heavy, but reassuring. Like the earth itself offering support. There are no kings here tonight. No processions. No voices raised in command. Only time. Time moving slowly enough to be felt. Generations will pass through this place. Children not yet born will one day walk these stones without knowing who first laid them. And that is part of the beauty. The people who began this work knew something important, even if they never said it aloud. They knew they would not see the end. They carved stone anyway. As the night deepens, a thin mist rises from the river. It drifts gently through the unfinished arches, softening their edges. The structure seems to breathe with the air around it. Stone cooling, wood settling, silence growing thicker, kinder. If your eyes feel heavy now, that is all right. You do not need to keep them open. You may simply listen. The story will continue whether you follow every word or not. Long ago, people believed that stone remembered, that it held the warmth of hands long gone, that it carried the patience of those who shaped it day after day without hurry. Here, each block was lifted not for glory, but for continuity. One generation trusting the next to continue what they began. And perhaps, as you rest now, there is something comforting in that thought, that not everything needs to be finished tonight. That some things are meant to unfold slowly over time with care. The cathedral does not rise yet. Not really, it waits. And in that waiting, it teaches. Just as this story will not by pushing forward, but by drifting gently like the river nearby, moving steadily beneath the moon. In a moment, we will follow the slow passage of years. Not through events, but through seasons. through quiet repetition, through hands learning the same movements their fathers once knew. But for now, rest here, in the cool night air, beside stone that has all the time in the world. The journey has begun softly. Morning does not arrive here with urgency. It seeps in slowly, pale light touching stone that has grown accustomed to patience. The river reflects the sky in muted tones, never bright, never demanding attention. Days in this place do not announce themselves as beginnings. They simply continue what the night has gently paused. If you were standing nearby, you might notice how little seems to change from one day to the next. And yet everything is changing. Not through moments of drama, but through repetition, through hands returning to the same tasks, through breath warming cold air, through stone learning its place in the world. The builders come back as the sun lifts just enough to take the chill from the air. They arrive without ceremony, carrying tools worn smooth by years of use. Some are young, still learning how to listen to the stone. Others move more slowly now, their bodies shaped by decades of labor, their knowledge carried quietly in muscle memory. There is no sense of hurry among them. No clock measuring progress. Time here is counted differently. It is counted in seasons. In how the light falls across the scaffoldings in spring. In how frost settles into the mortar during winter. In how summer heat softens voices and slows movement. The cathedral grows, but not in a way anyone can point to at the end of a single day. A stone is placed, another is shaped, a line becomes a curve becomes an arch, and then the day ends. The structure rises so slowly that even those working on it cannot truly see its change. It is like watching a child grow when you are with them every day. The transformation only becomes visible when time has passed quietly, without being watched. Fathers bring sons to the site, not for spectacle, but for learning. A chisel is handed down, a technique demonstrated without words. Knowledge moves not through books, but through shared silence. And when a man grows too old to lift stone, he stands nearby instead, watching, correcting gently, offering guidance with a nod or a glance. No one speaks of legacy, and yet legacy is everywhere, in the way the stone fits exactly where it should, in the way a mistake is corrected patiently, without blame, in the way the work continues even when those who began it are no longer there to see it. The cathedral is not being built for completion. It is being built for continuation. And that idea settles into the space, as steady as the river beside it. You might find your breath matching that rhythm now. Slow, unforced. There is no expectation placed upon you here. Just as no expectation is placed upon these stones to hurry, years pass though they do not announce themselves. A winter feels longer than the last. A summer brings unfamiliar heat. The scaffolding grows taller. The ground remembers every footstep, every pause, every moment of stillness between movements. And through it all, the city changes around this place. Markets shift. Streets expand. Lives begin and end. But the work remains constant, quiet, almost invisible in its persistence. People pass by and barely notice the difference from one year to the next. They assume the structure has always been this way, and perhaps it feels that way even to those who labor upon it. This is how time teaches patience, not by instruction, but by example. The cathedral does not demand attention. It allows attention to settle upon it if one chooses to look. And even then, it does not reveal everything at once. There are no grand unveilings, no moments meant to impress, only steady becoming. As the years continue their soft unfolding, something else grows alongside the stone, a sense of trust. Trust that what is begun will be carried forward. Trust that effort does not need immediate reward to have meaning. Trust that something beautiful can exist even while unfinished. If you are listening closely now, you might feel that trust settling somewhere within you as well, a loosening. A quiet acceptance that not everything must resolve itself tonight. That some parts of life are allowed to remain in progress. The cathedral accepts this truth fully. It rises without anxiety, without fear of interruption. It knows time will continue, because time always does. And so it grows the only way it knows how, slowly, faithfully, without concern for being seen. As evening returns once more, the tools are set down again. Hands are cleaned, voices fade. The structure stands alone, holding the warmth of the day within its stone. The river reflects the darkening sky, and the night settles back into place, just as it did before. Nothing feels unfinished here. Nothing feels rushed. The work pauses, but it does not stop. It simply waits, confident in its own continuation. And perhaps, as you rest now, there is comfort in that idea. That even when you pause, even when you rest, the quiet work of becoming does not abandon you. It simply moves more gently, more slowly, like the seasons themselves. There comes a time, not marked by bells or proclamations, when the work begins to change its character. It is not a dramatic shift. No one announces it. Yet those who spend their days here can feel it, quietly, the way one senses a change in the air before rain. The walls have grown taller now, high enough that the sky feels closer when you stand beneath them. Sound behaves differently here. Voices soften as they rise, footsteps echo longer, then fade. Even silence seems to linger, as if unsure where to settle. This is when the builders begin to think not only of weight, but of balance. Stone is heavy. Everyone knows this. It presses downward with certainty. And yet, here, stone must learn to reach upward, to open space rather than close it. The solution does not arrive as a sudden insight. It unfolds slowly, through observation, through quiet experimentation, through mistakes gently corrected over time. Curving supports begin to appear along the outer walls, arching outward like extended arms. They are not decorative. They are practical. They take the outward force of the roof and carry it safely down into the ground. Later, people will call them flying buttresses. But here, now, they are simply part of the structure learning how to stand. There is something almost tender about them. Stone that looks as if it is leaning away, yet is doing the essential work of holding everything together. Heavy material, arranged in a way that allows lightness to exist. The builders do not speak of genius or innovation. They speak of necessity, of listening to what the building requires, of letting form follow patience rather than ambition. When these arches begin to stretch outward, the interior changes. The walls no longer need to bear all the weight alone. They can open. They can rise higher. They can welcome something new, light. At first, it arrives cautiously. Narrow openings, modest and restrained. Then, slowly, with confidence earned over years, the openings grow larger. Colored glass appears, set carefully into stone frames. It does not shout. It glows. When sunlight passes through it, the air itself seems to soften. Reds deepen, blues cool the space. Golds hover gently, never harsh. The light does not illuminate objects so much as it paints the atmosphere. Stories are told here without voices. Scenes unfold not through words, but through color and shape. You do not need to understand them to feel their presence. They are not meant to instruct so much as to accompany, to offer something calm for the eye to rest upon. The builders step back when the light first enters fully. They do not cheer. They simply watch. Many of them will never see these windows finished, never see all the glass in place. And yet they have prepared the space for it. They have trusted something beyond their own time. This trust settles into the building itself. The cathedral begins to feel less like a structure and more like a vessel, not holding people, but holding moments, holding breath, holding quiet reflection. Outside, life continues as it always has. Carts roll over uneven streets. Voices rise in markets. Children grow, adults age, elders fade. None of this stops the work, and the work does not demand that any of it change. The cathedral does not compete with the world. It coexists. Inside, the light shifts throughout the day, never the same twice. Morning brings cool clarity. Midday softens edges. Evening turns everything inward. Stone that once felt cold now feels calm, as if it has learned its role, as if it understands that its purpose is not to dominate, but to support. The arches do not strain. They rest into their function, carrying weight without complaint. There is a lesson here, though no one states it directly. That strength does not need to be loud. That support can be quiet and still be essential. That holding something up does not require being seen. If you find your thoughts slowing now, that is natural. This is not a place that encourages quick conclusions. It invites lingering. Even the light seems unhurried as it moves across the floor, tracing patterns that disappear as gently as they arrive. Time inside the cathedral feels different from time outside. It stretches, it breathes, it does not push forward. The builders sense this change as well. Their movements become more deliberate. Less about effort, more about alignment. Stone placed just so. Angles adjusted by feel rather than measurement alone. The structure responds. It settles into itself, growing more confident with each careful addition. There are moments when nothing seems to happen at all. Days when work pauses because the stone must rest, or the weather insists on patience. These pauses are not seen as failures. They are part of the rhythm, just as rest is part of your own rhythm now. You are not falling behind by slowing down. You are aligning. As night returns again, the light withdraws, leaving behind a sense of space that remains even in darkness. The cathedral holds the memory of illumination, just as stone holds the memory of hands. And in the quiet, beneath arches that seem to float more than stand, the structure waits, not empty, not unfinished, simply present, ready to receive the next day, the next season, the next quiet contribution. And you, listening now, may feel something similar, a sense that nothing more is required of you in this moment, that it is enough to simply be held by the story, the way the sky is held by stone that learned, patiently, how to support it. As the cathedral continues its slow becoming, there is a subtle shift in how people experience it, not through announcements or ceremonies, but through feeling. Those who step inside begin to lower their voices without being asked. Their footsteps soften. Even their thoughts seem to slow, as if the space itself is guiding them gently inward. Light now plays a larger role here. It arrives each day with a different temperament, shaped by clouds, by season, by the angle of the sun. In the early hours, it enters quietly, pale, and tentative, brushing against stone like a question. By midday, it gathers warmth, spreading across the floor in broad, calm patterns. And in the late afternoon, it turns inward, deepening in color, inviting rest. The stained glass does not demand interpretation. Its stories are not meant to be read line by line. Instead, they are felt. Color becomes memory. Blue suggests depth and distance. Red carries warmth without urgency. Gold lingers like a thought you do not need to finish. For many, this is the first time light feels like something that can be inhabited, not merely seen, but entered. The builders notice this change as well, though they speak of it rarely. They adjust their work to honor it. Openings are shaped to guide the sun gently, never forcing it. Stone frames are smoothed where hands might brush against them, not for decoration, but for comfort. There is an understanding growing here that the building is not only meant to stand, but to receive. Outside, the city continues its steady rhythm. Seasons pass. Winters bring a sharpness to the air that settles into the stone, cooling it deeply. Summers warm it slowly, until it holds heat long after sunset. The cathedral absorbs these changes without resistance. It becomes a quiet participant in time, rather than an observer. People come and go. Some enter briefly, drawn by curiosity or routine. Others linger, finding something they did not know they were seeking. No one is required to feel anything in particular. The space offers, and that is enough. There are moments when the light aligns just right, casting patterns that seem almost intentional. A shape on the floor that resembles a leaf. A reflection that climbs a column before fading. These moments are not captured or preserved. They are allowed to pass. And in their passing, they leave a gentle trace, a sense of having been present for something fleeting and kind. The cathedral does not try to hold on to these moments. It understands impermanence. The builders, too, understand this more deeply now. Many of them have spent decades here. Their hair has grayed. Their hands bear the marks of long labor. They know they will not see the building complete. And yet, there is no bitterness in this knowledge, only acceptance. They are part of a sequence, not a conclusion. Each stone they place is both an ending and a beginning. This understanding shapes their work. They do not rush to finish. They do not cut corners to leave a mark. They work as if someone else will one day stand where they stand now, continuing what they began. There is humility in this, quiet and unspoken. The cathedral becomes a place where time feels layered. Past effort supports present stillness. Present care prepares future calm. Light moves through all of it, indifferent to ownership, generous in its presence. If you listen closely, you might notice how your own thoughts behave differently here. They do not line up, demanding resolution. They drift. They overlap. They soften at the edges. This is not a space for answers. It is a space for rest. And perhaps that is why people return again and again, without fully understanding why. They sense something here that does not ask for anything in return. As evening approaches, the light deepens. Colors grow richer, then quieter. The interior darkens gradually, without abruptness. Shadows do not fall sharply. They arrive like guests, settling into corners, leaning against columns. Candles appear, small and steady. Their flames add a different kind of light, intimate and close. They do not compete with the daylight that came before. They simply continue the conversation in another tone. The builders step away once more. Tools rest. Stone cools. The cathedral holds the day within it, remembering light even as darkness grows. This remembering is not active. It does not cling. It simply remains available, ready to receive light again when it returns. And as night settles, the space becomes even quieter. Not empty, but full in a different way. Full of echoes, of warmth held in stone, of moments layered gently upon one another. If your breathing has slowed now, that is natural. This is a place that encourages release. There is nothing you need to take with you from here, nothing to carry forward. You can allow the light to fade, knowing it will return. Just as rest returns after effort, just as calm follows motion. The cathedral stands, not as a monument to completion, but as a companion to time. And in its quiet endurance, it offers you the same permission to pause, to soften, to remember without effort. There are countless lives that pass through this place without leaving a name behind. They arrive softly, as most lives do, and they depart in much the same way. The cathedral does not ask who they are. It does not require their stories to be recorded. It simply receives them, offering the same stillness to each. Some come with purpose, others with habit. Some step inside only briefly, letting the cool air settle on their skin before moving on. Others linger longer, drawn by something they cannot quite define. There are no instructions posted here on how one should feel. No expectation of devotion or understanding. The space allows each person to arrive as they are. A woman pauses near a column, her hand resting against the stone. She does not know who shaped it or how many years it took to place it there. She only knows that it feels solid and calm beneath her fingers. A child looks upward, tracing the height of the arches until his neck grows tired. He does not think of engineering or time. He simply feels small in a way that is not frightening, but reassuring. Somewhere nearby, a man stands quietly, his thoughts heavy with concerns he does not speak aloud. The cathedral does not solve them. It does not try. It simply holds the space where those thoughts can slow, loosen, and rest for a moment. The builders see these people come and go. They do not interrupt. They understand that the structure is no longer only theirs. It has begun to belong to time itself. Each day, as work resumes, they move carefully around those who wander through. There is a shared understanding that this place is becoming something more than stone and labor. It is becoming a pause within the city, a place where movement naturally softens. Years continue to pass, measured quietly by changes in the builders themselves. One man no longer climbs the scaffolding as easily as he once did. Another teaches more often than he works. guiding younger hands with patience rather than force. When someone is gone, there is no ceremony here. Their absence is felt, then accepted. The work continues not out of indifference, but out of respect. To stop would be to deny the continuity they all understand so deeply. The cathedral absorbs these transitions without comment. It has learned that everything changes, and that change does not diminish what has already been given. Stone remembers the warmth of hands long gone. Mortar holds the imprint of effort, without needing to recall names. There is something profoundly gentle in this kind of memory. It does not cling. It does not demand recognition. It simply remains part of the whole. Outside, the city evolves. New buildings rise and fall. Streets are rerouted. Customs shift. Yet this place remains steady, not because it resists change, but because it accommodates it slowly. The cathedral does not rush to define itself. It allows meaning to gather over time, like dust motes settling in sunlight. Those who return after many years notice subtle differences. A new window completed, a wall extended, a space that feels more open than before. But the overall impression remains one of continuity rather than alteration. It feels as though the building has always been this way, even as it continues to grow. This illusion of timelessness is perhaps its greatest gift. It reminds those who enter that not everything is bound to the urgency of a single lifetime. That some things exist on a scale that allows individual worries to soften and release their hold. If you are listening now and find your thoughts drifting toward memories of your own, that is welcome here. Memories do not intrude in this space. They arrive gently, sit quietly, and often leave without demanding resolution. The cathedral does not separate past from present. It allows them to overlap, to exist together without conflict. A man lights a candle, not because he expects an answer, but because the act itself brings a sense of order. The small flame flickers steadily, its light joining countless others that have come before. None of them are preserved. None of them are lost. They simply exist in their moment, then fade. The builders understand this rhythm intuitively. They know that their work too will one day be complete without them. And rather than troubling them, this knowledge brings calm. It frees them from the need to hurry. It allows them to focus on care rather than outcome. Stone is shaped with attention, not because someone will admire it, but because it deserves to be shaped well. This quiet ethic seeps into the walls, into the arches, into the very air. Those who spend time here often leave feeling lighter, though they may not know why. It is not because anything has been resolved. It is because something has been released. The cathedral offers a reminder that existence does not require constant effort to justify itself. That being present, even briefly, is enough. As evening falls once more, the interior darkens gradually. The last visitors drift away. The builders gather their tools, speaking softly, if at all. The structure stands alone again, holding the traces of the day without needing to reflect on them. Night settles into the stone, and in that quiet, all the lives that have passed through remain gently held, not as stories to be told, but as presence that once was, and in some way still is. There are moments when the cathedral feels most alive, not when it is full, but when it is nearly empty. Late at night or just before dawn, when even the city seems to pause, the space holds a different kind of presence. It is then that echoes linger longer, and silence feels layered rather than hollow. In these hours, the idea of power softens. Not the power of stone or structure, but the power people once believed resided in titles, crowns, and authority. Beyond these walls, rulers come and go. Their names are spoken loudly for a time, then more quietly, then not at all. They issue commands, build palaces, wage disputes, and imagine permanence for themselves. Yet here, within this growing structure, power feels distant, almost irrelevant. The cathedral does not respond to commands, it responds to care. Kings may pass through, escorted and observed, their presence briefly altering the rhythm of the space. But even they lower their voices, even they walk more slowly. The stone does not bend to them. It does not acknowledge hierarchy. It remains itself, steady and indifferent to rank. There are stories whispered among the builders about rulers who felt uneasy here. Men accustomed to being obeyed, unsettled by a space that did not react to them. The cathedral does not oppose power. It simply does not participate in it. This neutrality has a calming effect. It reminds those who enter that authority is temporary, while continuity is enduring. A throne may command attention for a generation. Stone shaped with patience may hold space for centuries. Over time, the builders notice that fewer grand figures appear. Or perhaps they simply noticed that their presence matters less. The work continues regardless. The cathedral grows according to its own quiet logic, guided by gravity, light, and human care rather than decree. This absence of domination creates room for something else. Reflection, not the kind that demands conclusions, but the kind that allows questions to rest without answers. People find themselves thinking differently here. Not about what they must do, but about what they can release. The building offers a subtle lesson that power does not always need to act. Sometimes it is enough to remain. This idea settles gently, like dust in sunlight. Outside, history continues its familiar patterns. Conflicts rise and fade. Alliances form and dissolve. Names are carved into records, then worn smooth by time. None of this disturbs the cathedral's slow rhythm. It does not reject history. It simply refuses to be hurried by it. Those who work here come to appreciate this distance. It gives them perspective. They understand that their labor is not tied to the success or failure of any particular reign. It belongs to a longer arc, one that moves beyond individual ambition. This understanding brings a quiet freedom. They work without fear of interruption, without anxiety about recognition. They trust that what they are building will outlast the concerns of the present moment. If you notice your own thoughts drifting away from urgency now, that is natural. This is a place that gently loosens the grip of immediate concerns. It does not ask you to solve anything. It simply invites you to step back and observe the larger flow. The cathedral stands as a reminder that much of what feels pressing in daily life eventually softens, that intensity fades, that what remains is often simpler than expected. Stone, light, space, time. These elements do not argue, they coexist. They teach by example rather than instruction. As night deepens, the sense of hierarchy dissolves further. The absence of activity equalizes everything. Columns and corners share the same quiet. The highest arch and the lowest step rest together in darkness. Power, here, has nowhere to stand, and in its absence, something gentler takes its place. A feeling of being held rather than governed, of existing without needing to assert. This feeling extends outward, touching those who pass through even briefly. They may not articulate it, but they carry it with them when they leave. A subtle shift, a slight easing. The builders feel it too, especially those who have spent much of their lives here. They have learned that influence does not always come from control, that endurance can be more impactful than command, that leaving space for others is sometimes the greatest act of strength. The cathedral embodies this lesson quietly. It does not proclaim it. It lives it. As the hours pass and the night reaches its deepest stillness, the structure seems to settle further into itself. Stone cools, air becomes denser, sound retreats. Nothing is expected to happen, and nothing needs to. This is not emptiness. It is rest. A rest that does not signal an ending, but a continuation. If your breathing has slowed, if your thoughts feel less insistent, you are simply responding to the rhythm of a place that does not demand attention. You are allowed to rest here too, to exist without performing, to let go of the need to hold everything together. The cathedral will continue to stand, quietly, doing what it has learned to do best, holding space, offering stillness, and reminding all who pass through that true power often reveals itself not in action, but in calm endurance. As the cathedral continues its quiet presence, stories begin to gather around it. Not sharply defined stories, not tales with clear beginnings or endings, but soft narratives that drift through the city like evening air. People speak of the place in lowered tones, as if loud voices might disturb something delicate. They do not argue over facts here. They share impressions, whispers of meaning rather than declarations of truth. Over time, these impressions blur gently into legend. Not legend as spectacle, but legend as atmosphere. A sense that something more is present, though it cannot be pointed to directly. Some speak of the hands that built the walls, imagining them guided by faith alone. Others speak of light itself as a teacher, shaping understanding without words. There are mentions of ancient orders, of quiet brotherhoods who valued patience and continuity over conquest. Their names appear, then fade, leaving behind only a feeling of collective effort rather than individual achievement. These stories do not ask to be believed. They ask only to be carried lightly, like a shared dream. The cathedral does not confirm or deny them. It allows them to exist alongside stone and silence, neither elevated nor dismissed. This openness gives the legends their longevity. They are not preserved in rigid form. They change subtly with each telling, adapting to the listener rather than insisting on accuracy. And in this way, they remain gentle. Builders hear these stories too, passed along during breaks or quiet moments at the end of the day. They listen without judgment. They understand that stories serve a different purpose than records. They offer connection rather than certainty. A sense that the work they are part of belongs to something larger than themselves. Over generations, this sense deepens. The cathedral becomes not just a structure, but a shared memory still being formed. Even those who have never worked on it feel a quiet familiarity when they approach, as if they have known it before, in another time, or another version of themselves. This familiarity is not rooted in ownership, it is rooted in continuity. The building has been present for so long that it feels like part of the natural landscape, as inevitable as the river beside it. Children grow up with its silhouette shaping their sense of place. Elders remember it from their youth, both unchanged and subtly different. The legends follow the same pattern. They are remembered not for their details, but for how they make people feel, calm, grounded, less alone. If you notice your own thoughts drifting towards stories you once heard, half remembered and softened by time, that is fitting here. This is a space that welcomes memory without requiring precision. It understands that truth can exist without sharp edges, that meaning does not always need to be proven. As night falls again, the legends quiet. They do not disappear, but they recede, making room for rest. The cathedral stands without narrative, without explanation. Stone does not need a story to remain. It simply is. And yet, the stories linger just beneath the surface, like warmth held in cooled stone, ready to return when light and voices do. This balance between presence and imagination is part of what gives the place its gentle pull. It does not trap attention. It releases it. People leave carrying less than they arrived with. Fewer questions, softer concerns. A sense that some things can remain unresolved without causing harm. The legends do not demand belief because they do not demand anything at all. They exist to accompany, not to instruct. To offer a shared sense of wonder that does not interrupt rest. Over time, even the idea of legend becomes less important than the feeling it leaves behind. A quiet assurance that continuity matters more than certainty. That shared effort matters more than individual recognition. That time, when allowed to move at its own pace, shapes meaning more gently than force ever could. The cathedral embodies this lesson simply by remaining. Night after night, season after season. As you listen now, you may feel that same assurance settling within you. A permission to let stories soften, to let memories blur without losing their warmth, to rest without needing to define what rests with you. The legends will still be there if you return to them. The stone will still stand. Nothing important is being lost. It is simply becoming quieter. And in that quiet, there is room for sleep to arrive naturally, without invitation, without effort. There is a point reached gradually and without announcement, when the cathedral no longer feels like something that is being made. It begins to feel like something that simply exists. The distinction is subtle, but it changes how people relate to it. No longer do they ask how long it will take to finish. The question loses relevance. What matters now is not completion, but presence. The structure has learned how to be part of the city's breathing, rising and falling with the rhythm of days and nights. Time behaves differently around it. Hours pass without friction, minutes stretch gently, then dissolve. People find themselves losing track of how long they have been inside, not because they are distracted, but because there is nothing here urging them to count. This is time without urgency. Time that does not press forward or pull back. It simply moves, steady and untroubled. The builders feel this most clearly. Many of them no longer think in terms of progress. They think in terms of alignment. How stone meets stone, how light settles, how sound carries. Their work has become less about adding and more about listening. The structure communicates its needs quietly, through balance and tension, through the way materials respond to one another. A wall that has settled asks for reinforcement. An arch that has found its strength asks to be left alone. There is no impatience in these exchanges, only attention. Over the years, attention has become the true craft practiced here. Not speed, not innovation, but care sustained over time. This care extends beyond the builders. Those who enter the cathedral sense it immediately, even if they cannot name it. They slow down instinctively. They pause longer than they intended. Their thoughts loosen, drifting away from schedules and obligations. The space does not remove these concerns. It simply sets them aside for a while, like belongings placed gently at the door. In this setting, time feels less like something to manage and more like something to inhabit. You are not moving through it. You are resting within it. This sensation deepens as evening approaches. The light fades gradually, without sudden shifts. Shadows lengthen and soften, blending rather than dividing. The boundary between one moment and the next becomes less distinct. Candles appear again, their flames steady and unassuming. They do not compete with the darkness. They coexist with it, offering just enough illumination to feel present without overwhelming the senses. Sound changes too. Voices become rare. Footsteps echo once, then vanish. The cathedral absorbs these sounds, holding them briefly before letting them go. Nothing lingers longer than it needs to. This is a place that understands release. The builders, now fewer in number, prepare to leave for the night. Their movements are familiar, practiced, unhurried. Tools are set down with care. Surfaces are cleared. There is no sense of finality in these actions, only continuity. They know they will return, or if they do not, someone else will. The work does not belong to any single set of hands. It belongs to time itself. Outside, the city grows quieter. Lights dim. Activity recedes. The river continues its steady movement, reflecting fragments of the sky. The cathedral stands between these elements, neither resisting nor directing them. It allows itself to be shaped by what passes through and around it. This openness is part of its endurance. It does not hold tightly to any one moment. It lets moments arrive, settle, and depart. If you find your own awareness drifting now, that is natural. This is not a story that asks for focus. It asks for presence. You do not need to follow every word. The rhythm is enough. Like breathing, it continues whether you attend to it or not. There is a quiet wisdom in that. The understanding that effort is not always required to sustain what matters. That sometimes allowing is enough. The cathedral embodies this understanding fully. It does not strive to be timeless, it simply accepts time as it comes. Over decades, this acceptance has shaped its character more deeply than any design choice. It feels settled, at ease with itself, comfortable in its incompleteness. This comfort radiates outward, touching those who come near. They may leave with a subtle sense of relief, as if something they were holding too tightly has loosened its grip. They may not notice it immediately. The feeling may surface later, in quieter moments, when they remember how it felt to stand within walls that did not hurry them. As night deepens, the cathedral grows still. Not silent, but restful. Air circulates slowly. Stone cools evenly. The space feels held, complete in its quiet state. There is nothing left to do here tonight. And perhaps, as you listen now, there is nothing left for you to do either. Time will continue its gentle movement, whether you attend to it or not. You are free to rest within it, to let go of measurement, to allow yourself to drift, carried by a rhythm that has learned over centuries how to move without urgency. The night has now settled into its deepest, most unremarkable hour, the kind that arrives so smoothly it leaves no trace of movement behind. And within this hour, the cathedral no longer feels like a place that can be observed or described, but rather like a condition that surrounds you gently. The way still water surrounds a resting stone without pressure and without expectation. The air inside feels evenly distributed, as though it has already learned where it belongs, drifting slowly through the vast interior without direction or purpose, simply existing in a state of quiet agreement with the stone around it. The walls do not loom or impress anymore. They recede into usefulness, into calm participation, their surfaces softened by centuries of passing nights that have taught them patience beyond measure. Light, what little remains, has lost its source and its intention, becoming only a faint suggestion of visibility, enough to feel present, but not enough to invite focus. Shadows no longer shift or stretch. They rest where they are, settled into the curves of arches and the bases of columns like thoughts that have finally found a place to lie down. Time here no longer feels like something that moves forward. It feels wide and still, like a lake without wind, where moments do not advance but gently overlap, dissolving into one another until distinction no longer matters. The cathedral seems to understand that nothing more is required of it tonight, that its role now is simply to remain stable and receptive, offering its quiet without commentary. There is no sense of waiting here, no anticipation of morning, no awareness of what comes next. Even the idea of sequence has softened, losing its sharpness, becoming optional rather than necessary. If there were once builders who worried about progress, their concerns have long since faded into irrelevance, replaced by an understanding that endurance does not require urgency. Stone cools slowly now, releasing warmth at a pace so gentle it feels almost imperceptible, as if it knows that sudden change would be disruptive, unnecessary. The floor beneath feels firm but forgiving, a surface that supports without drawing attention to itself, allowing weight to rest naturally, without resistance. Sound, if it exists at all, has been absorbed so completely that it feels theoretical rather than real, as though echoes belong to another time entirely. The space does not ask you to listen. It allows you to stop listening. Sound, if it exists at all, has been absorbed so completely that it feels theoretical rather than real, as though echoes belong to another time entirely. Nothing in this environment holds on to meaning tightly. Everything has learned the value of release. Over countless nights like this one, the structure has learned that presence is enough, that remaining intact and receptive is a form of quiet generosity. Here, separation between inside and outside feels less important, as though boundaries themselves have grown tired and chosen to rest. The cathedral does not protect or isolate. It simply provides steadiness, a neutral ground where nothing needs to be resolved. Over countless nights like this one, the structure has learned that presence is enough, that remaining intact and receptive is a form of quiet generosity. It has watched seasons pass without comment, allowed weather to mark it gently, accepted change without resistance, and through this acceptance, it has become something more than the sum of its materials. Even the vastness of the interior has quieted, shrinking into something intimate, something that feels scaled to breathing rather than to sight. You may notice that words no longer form sharp images, that sentences drift past without demanding comprehension, and that is exactly how this space functions best. It does not reward analysis. It offers rest. The arches overhead no longer feel high or low. They simply curve, holding space in a way that feels inevitable and unremarkable. Columns stand without asserting their strength, their purpose fulfilled so completely that it no longer needs to be noticed. Even the vastness of the interior has quieted, shrinking into something intimate, something that feels scaled to breathing rather than to sight. Breath itself seems to align with the space, lengthening without instruction, deepening without effort, finding a rhythm that feels familiar and unforced. The cathedral does not synchronize with you, it allows you to synchronize with yourself. In this hour, nothing is being recorded, remembered, or judged. Memory has loosened its structure, becoming a soft blur of impressions rather than a sequence of events. Identity, too, feels less defined, less necessary. There is no role to perform here, no perspective to maintain. You are not a visitor, not an observer, not even a listener in any active sense. You are simply present, and even that presence requires no maintenance. The space holds itself, and in doing so, it holds you. Over time, the concept of the cathedral itself begins to dissolve, leaving behind only a sensation of steadiness, of being supported without being constrained. Stone, air, darkness, and quiet merge into a single, continuous state that has no edges. There is no center to return to, no perimeter to reach. Everything important has already arrived, and nothing further is expected. This is not an ending, because endings imply direction. It is a settling, a gentle flattening of experience into something smooth and undisturbed. Sleep, when it comes, will not arrive as an event. It will simply be a continuation of this stillness, a deepening of the same calm that already exists. You do not need to notice the moment it happens. There is no transition to mark, no threshold to cross. The cathedral has already done what it has always done best. Created a space where nothing presses, nothing pulls, and nothing needs to be held together by effort. All that remains is this quiet, stable presence, extending evenly in all directions, allowing awareness to thin and soften until it rests completely. The cathedral has already done what it has always done best. Created a space where nothing presses, nothing pulls, and nothing needs to be held together by effort. As the night deepens, the world seems to agree, quietly and without ceremony, to slow even further, as though every surface, every shadow, every remaining edge has reached a shared understanding that nothing more is required. The cathedral rests within this agreement, not as an object demanding attention, but as a presence that has long since learned the value of stillness. Stone cools gradually beneath the touch of night air, releasing the warmth of the day so slowly it feels almost intentional, as if time itself is taking care not to disturb the calm. Moonlight drifts across the facade without urgency, settling into grooves carved by centuries of weather and patience, tracing lines that were shaped by hands, now long gone hands that once worked not with haste, but with trust that time would do its part. Inside this quiet, the idea of completion no longer holds meaning. The cathedral does not need to be finished, understood, or remembered in any particular way. It simply remains, and that remaining feels enough. The echoes that once filled its halls have softened into memory, and even memory now feels optional, something that can be set down gently, like a heavy coat no longer needed. The air feels thicker, not heavy, but comforting, like a blanket settling into place. Sounds from the outside world arrive only as distant impressions, soft beyond recognition, no longer asking to be identified or interpreted. In this space, the mind is invited to loosen its grip, not by instruction, but by example. The stone does not cling to its past, and neither must you. Centuries pass here without announcement, layered one upon another so gently that no single moment claims importance over the next. Builders came and went, generations followed generations, and still the structure learned how to stand quietly, how to let weight distribute itself naturally, how to trust balance rather than force. That same lesson drifts now into awareness, not as a thought to hold on to, but as a feeling to sink into. There is no need to trace the story back to its beginning, no need to carry the names, the dates, the intentions. Those details can rest where they belong, within the stone, within the slow movement of time that has already taken responsibility for them. Breathing continues, steady and unremarkable, happening without effort, without observation. Each breath arrives and leaves on its own terms, like the tide responding to the moon without needing to be watched. Muscles soften almost imperceptibly, releasing tensions that no longer serve a purpose. The body understands this moment intuitively, recognizing a safe place when it finds one. Here, nothing demands vigilance. Nothing needs to be solved or prepared for. Even awareness begins to thin, not disappearing, but becoming lighter, less defined, like mist dispersing at dawn. The cathedral does not mark endings. It does not signal conclusions or transitions. It exists comfortably in the in-between, where things are allowed to simply continue without direction. Night after night, it has stood through countless versions of quiet, each one slightly different, each one complete in its own way. Some nights were filled with distant footsteps, others with whispered prayers, others still with nothing at all. And yet the stillness remained a common thread, patient and reliable. That patience now feels close, almost tangible, as though it could be leaned into. Thoughts, if they appear, arrive slowly and without edges, unable to gather momentum. They drift through and dissolve before forming stories, before becoming concerns. The sense of time stretches not forward or backward, but outward, becoming less like a line and more like a wide, calm surface. There's no curiosity about what comes next, because next no longer feels necessary. Rest is not something approaching from the distance. It has already arrived, settling gently into every corner of the space. The cathedral does not hold this rest for you. It simply demonstrates that rest can exist without effort, without permission. Stone arches curve overhead, not pressing down, but lifting upward, distributing weight so evenly that gravity itself seems to relax. Light fades gradually, not into darkness, but into a softer version of itself until distinction becomes unnecessary. Inside and outside blur together, and the idea of separation loses relevance. There is only quiet continuity, a sense that things are exactly where they need to be. The past no longer feels distant or close. It feels diffuse, spread thin across centuries until it becomes part of the background rather than a story to follow. The future carries no urgency, no shape that needs to be anticipated. In this space, nothing pulls attention forward. Nothing pulls it back. Awareness settles naturally into the present, then gently slips beyond even that, resting somewhere undefined and comfortable. The cathedral stands, as it always has, not watching, not waiting, not expecting. It does not require acknowledgement. Its role is not to impress, but to remain, offering the same quiet stability it has offered through countless nights like this one. And within that stability, there is permission to let go completely, to stop holding on to the thread of listening, to allow the story to continue on its own without participation. The night does not need witnesses. The stone does not need recognition, and you do not need to stay awake to carry any of this forward. Everything that needs to remain will remain, just as it always has, held gently by time itself, while rest deepens naturally, effortlessly, until even the idea of rest fades into something softer still, something without name or boundary, where the story no longer asks to be followed, and sleep arrives not as an ending, but as a quiet continuation,